Welcome to 2 Hours, No Traffic, a New York, Philadelphia sports podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Spen Harris. He's Philly Brandon. We got a good amount going on in the first 10 days of August in the sports world. I'm talking football. I'm talking basketball, a little bit of baseball here and there. For all you Mets fans, Mets have been killing it.
I got the Mets written in later. I want to talk about Diaz, and I want to talk about Vogie the Hoagie. Other than that, we can talk about whatever.
We're going to talk about those two guys because they have been really just enhancing their brands these last few weeks, especially with their stellar play. But where are we starting this week, Brandon? What topic do you want us to begin the show with?
Hard Knocks is back, baby. After a couple seasons where, like the last couple years, I went back and started like rewatching because I knew I was going to get into it this year. So I watched like highlights from the last two Hard Knocks, and it's the typical like Hard Knocks kind of vibe where it's like a little bit scandal, a little bit reality show, like that kind of feel. I am so in on this year. I was doing up downs in my living room watching Dan Campbell do up downs with the defense. Deuce Staley and their DC, I think his last name's Coach Davis. Those two screaming at each other. Like, dude, Hutchinson doing Billie Jean and the lot. Like, I am just all in on the wholesome vibes that the Lions are putting out right now.
The defensive coordinator for the Lions is Aaron Glenn.
Okay, yeah.
No, I texted you. I watched pretty much 60% of it. I fell asleep, not because it was
absurd.
bad. I got tired. I don't know. It was one of those things I had eaten, I had drank. It was late Tuesday night, and I fell asleep. But I caught a good amount of it. I'm going to watch the end tonight. The Aiden Hutchinson, Billie Jean thing was awesome. He killed it. He killed it, and everybody was hype, and he messed up at first, and like, that was just awesome. And yeah, Dan Campbell is the ultimate players coach. He makes me want to go to war for him. And it's hard to not watch that show and want to root for the Lions. I mean, let's call it what it is. Hard Knocks isn't taking the Patriots. They're not taking, I know the Rams. I think the Rams were on a few years ago and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. But they're not taking teams that are supposed to be good. They're taking these teams that just need the exposure. You know what I mean?
Indy last year was like a weird circumstance because they weren't supposed to be good and then they got good all of a sudden by a last minute trade and all. But yeah, I mean, you want to see these like kind of bum franchises, and how they operate. But like, dude, this is why we don't know anything. Like after watching his training camp, watching the meetings, like watching Hard Knocks, I'm like, oh, dude, Lions, they're in great hands. Now they might win 5 games this year, but I feel so good about them right now.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And again, like there's something about this time of year, right? When you hear that music, da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na, and you hear Liev Schreiber's voice just being like, oh, I can't do a Liev Schreiber impression, no. But gosh darn it, Hard Knocks is everything I love about football prior to the season starting. And when that first episode comes on, and from what I saw, it was awesome. Football season's right around the corner.
Exactly. And in the spirit of Hard Knocks, after just seeing one episode or 60% of one episode, what is your completely uneducated prediction for the Lions this year, just purely based off of the vibes of episode 1?
I'll tell you this, Brandon. They're going to play hard. They're going to play with grit. Are they going to win a lot of games? No. Are they going to compete for a playoff spot? No. But are they gonna be in a lot of tight games where guys make, I don't want to say the word hustle plays in football because I feel like every play is a hustle play, but I think, with Dan Campbell leading the pack, you have guys who want to play for him. And I'm reading something about this last episode, and what I like is, they're not playing out of fear for Dan Campbell. They're playing out of respect for him.
Yeah.
The opening line that he gives, the opening monologue that he has in Hard Knocks, where he's talking about the ocean, how some teams only get to the shallow end, other teams get to the deep water, and that's where you want to be at the end of the year, is in that deep end, fighting it out with those teams. He freaking quoted Metallica. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, he is everything you want in a modern day football coach. And like, I don't want to overlook the fact that he did how many up downs with his team.
I think it was like 30 or something. It was an absurd amount.
Bro, and I was watching, and one of the guys, like one of the players, was just going down on their knees and getting up on their knees. And Dan Campbell was like really doing the up down. So that was
so was Aaron Glenn.
Yes.
They both do them together. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I want to see Dan Campbell keep his job. So I want to see them win 7 games this year.
I think Goff is sort of an overlooked quarterback at this point. I still think he's got some good football left in him. I just couldn't
talent. DeAndre Swift is a number 1 running back.
He's a nice player.
Real solid tight end. But
who are their receivers?
I don't even know what the receiving core is, dude. I have no idea. Antoine Randall is a receivers coach, though. Kind of cool.
That was pretty cool.
The whole coaching staff is former players, which I think is you don't see it a lot, but maybe this is why it's not working, but it's kind of cool.
I respect that.
Okay, we're about to start barking. What are we looking at here?
No, he just missed me, man. It's just been me and my dog this week. My wife is out of town on a business trip. So, when the wife's out of town, you got the dog. It's some real bonding moments. So we're just hanging out. What do we got next on the docket, Brandon?
We got something I thought we were done talking about, to be completely honest with you. I thought, that everybody made up and was cool, but apparently KD wants out. And not only does he want out, he wants either your least favorite franchise on earth or Philly.
Yeah, this is probably the worst offseason of all time if you're a Brooklyn, New Jersey Nets fan, whatever you want to call it. Every time we think that we get a morsel of decent news, it ends up just totally screwing us over. So last week it was reported that KD was going to meet with owner Joe Tsai. They were going to talk about, everything regarding the trade request and all that. And they meet. Also, by the way, at the same time we're hearing these reports, James Harden is at a Travis Scott concert with his buddy James Harden, Philadelphia 76er, former Brooklyn Net. And so didn't know what to expect from the meeting, was optimistic, thinking maybe they'd squash the beef. It was actually the exact opposite of squashing the beef. Kevin Durant basically went to Joe Tsai and said, look, it's either me or Sean Marks and Steve Nash. Choose wisely. Oh, and by the way, I still want to be traded. And if you're going to trade me, I'd like to play with Marcus Smart and the Celtics. You know what? I saw my buddy James Harden the other day. I wouldn't mind playing in Philadelphia with him and Joel Embiid. So we went from Kevin Durant meeting with the owner to try to kind of straighten things out to either you get rid of your entire front office or trade me to one of your biggest competitors in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and I don't see either one happening. Boston has a better package than we could give you guys, so I don't see Philly.
You guys gave us everything in the Simmons deal.
Yeah. Well, the only thing we held back was Maxey. So the deal would have to be Maxey, Tobias, Matisse, and picks. And look, at that point, if I'm being completely honest with you, and I know I'm going to catch hell for this, I'm good. The Kevin Durant's a transcendent talent. I get all that. The dude leaves every franchise in ruin. Golden State had beef with him there. He came over to Brooklyn, supposed to be he and Kyrie were going to save the city. I don't know what's going on, but apparently he and Harden are buddies now. He's demanding his way out of Brooklyn, a team that, by the way, he had a large part in putting together. If you think he wasn't consulted on every move, you don't follow basketball. So KD signed off on all these moves. They didn't work, and now he's pointing the blame directly at Sean Marks, who hasn't done a great job. I'm not saying that, but KD's taking no responsibility. I don't want that in Philadelphia. Y'all can keep him.
So I have a million things to say on this topic. As you guys know, I am a Brooklyn Nets fan. I have a Brooklyn Nets podcast. I eat, sleep, and breathe Brooklyn Nets basketball. So what you said was accurate in regards to Kevin Durant having sort of an approval status on most of the decisions that general manager Sean Marks has made. It was a misguided sort of note that Kevin Durant wanted Steve Nash in Brooklyn. That was not the case. Nash was Sean Marks' friend. They played together in Phoenix for a little bit. Nash was Marks' guy, and KD and Kyrie approved the hire. So let's start there. I do think that Kevin Durant has had a large say in every decision that's happened, since he's joined the team. I think that changed in the last few months leading into the offseason. I think that with Sean Marks and Joe Tsai, quote, trying to take back their franchise, they stopped consulting with Kevin Durant on everything. If it were up to Kevin Durant, I think Kyrie Irving would have been extended by the Brooklyn Nets. If we're up to Kevin Durant, Adam Harrington would still be on the coaching staff. Nets wouldn't have allowed Ime Udoka to go, David Vanderpool to go, Eli Carter to go. These are names that were friendly with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and are no longer on the coaching staff. These are reasons why Kevin Durant is upset with Sean Marks and Joe Tsai. I think at this point, Kevin Durant feels he should be a LeBron James type character in Brooklyn and be able to run everything. And there are reports, I don't know if they're true or not, that have basically said Kevin Durant would love, after Sean Marks and Steve Nash are fired, to put Rich Kleiman, give him a basketball operations job with the Brooklyn Nets and have Kevin Durant basically run the team. I don't know how accurate that is, but up to this point, it wouldn't surprise me.
No shot that happens. Joe Tsai would have to get whacked and thrown off the Brooklyn Bridge.
And that's where we are right now. We're at a point where Joe Tsai is choosing his front office, the guys that he hired in Marks and Marks' guy Nash, over Kevin Durant. And do I think it's absolutely wild that there's a possibility that we could trade James Harden and Kevin Durant to you guys in the span of a year? Yeah, that is freaking crazy to me.
I don't think it happens to where it comes to us. Like we were just saying, I mean, Boston can offer you a package that we literally we can't. I love Tyrese Maxey more than life itself most of the time. And he's going to be really good. He had a great season last year. He's not the established star that Jaylen Brown already is. We already cleaned house of all of our picks. I mean, if you want to pick from us, you're looking years down the road. I mean, no one knows better, what picks we lost in the Brooklyn Nets because you have them now. So you're not getting the first out of us until like 2026, 2027. Where Boston's not in that same boat. The fact that he's going to a division rival, no matter how this ends, is insane to me because for a front office that wants to take back their team, we're going through this right now where the ransom for Donovan Mitchell is arguably as high, if not higher, than what Brooklyn is entertaining for Kevin Durant. So if you want to take back over your front office, that's a start. Like, if you're already going to burn this bridge and let KD walk or push KD out the door, that's one thing. Dictate where he goes. He doesn't have to go to Philly or Boston and be happy and bury you in the 9, 10, 11 seed in the East. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
He doesn't have a no-trade clause, does he?
No, he doesn't. I know there are deals out there. I think that if the Pelicans were to put together a package around Brandon Ingram, who I think they'd be willing to part with, there's a move to be made there. If the Denver Nuggets were interested in moving Michael Porter Jr. and a few guys, there's a deal to be made with the Denver Nuggets. You're not getting Bam Adebayo. You're not getting Scotty Barnes out of Toronto. There are a lot of moves that you can make if you're the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the one thing I'll say that bothers me is regardless of whose side you're on, whether you think the front office is right, whether you think Kevin Durant is right, if the Nets were to lose Kevin Durant and James Harden in the course of, a year, and eventually, Kyrie Irving's probably out the door too. What I hate about that is it has to turn off other superstars from wanting to play in Brooklyn in the future. If you're a young superstar, if you're a Luka Doncic, a Trae Young, Chet Holmgren, Cade Cunningham, any of these younger guys who are sort of on the rise in the NBA, John Morant, when your time comes and you're a free agent, you get to dictate the next team. You're going to look at Brooklyn. You're going to say, hell to the no.
Yeah.
Look what they did with KD. Look what they did with Harden. Why would I want to play there?
Yeah, and that I find myself in a tough position because you almost have to be superstar friendly now. But the guys that they took on, this was always the chance, and just every Brooklyn Nets fan hoped it never came to this, but you took on 3 guys who are outside of LeBron James, probably the most comfortable wielding their power in the NBA as far as expecting to run a team, controlling their own destiny. Not really, I don't want to say honoring is the wrong word, but not really following like contracts and that kind of stuff. And the Nets were the wrong organization because, Joe Tsai and Sean Marks were just coming off the D'Angelo Russell era has such a weird place in all of this because that was a team that they directly controlled. They built from the ground up and they sniffed success. And I still think that Joe Tsai and Sean Marks look back at that team and are going, oh, those are the glory days. They broke it out to a feel-good team at that point. Then you bring in KD, you bring in Harden, you bring in Irving. That's not your team anymore. That line of thinking has to change, and it never really did.
I agree with exactly what you're saying, and I think that it was that type of team, right? You still had guys like Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, who were playing alongside Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Spencer Dinwiddie was on that team. When it changed was when we acquired James Harden. And then what happened was our roster got very thin. It was dependent on no injuries. And that's what happened.
And it got very top heavy.
And it got very top heavy. And now we're at a point where, look, I don't think he's going to go to Philly. Obviously, I don't think you guys have the assets. I think Boston is a real possibility. I think if you dangle Kevin Durant and maybe one other guy in front of Boston, you say, I want Jaylen Brown, I want Marcus Smart or Robert Williams. You probably don't want Robert Williams at this point because you just paid Nick Claxton. So you probably do Brown, Marcus Smart, maybe throw in Derek White and a pick or two. I think the Celtics might go for that. I think I can be sold if I'm Boston on a KD, Tatum, Malcolm Brogdon, Danilo Gallinari, Al Horford, Robert Williams led squad.
I mean, yeah, the tricky, not honestly the tricky part about that, but the weird part about that package is in the article. I mean, obviously Jason Tatum goes without saying or whatever. The only Celtic that was name dropped in that article as a counterpart, I want to go play with Marcus Smart. So including Marcus Smart in the deal is a little bit odd.
Okay, and who cares what he wants to do?
No, I agree. I just made that point a couple minutes ago.
If you're Brooklyn, I mean. No, yeah. I know, but I actually responded to that tweet, and I was like, breaking news, Kevin Durant has a desire to want to play with Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon. Like, of course he wants to play with all these guys. It doesn't matter. If KD were traded to the Celtics and we got back Marcus Smart, he would not blink for 2 seconds.
Yes.
It would happen. Go. And by the way, when the second the Celtics acquired Malcolm Brogdon, you made Marcus Smart expendable.
You made him, yeah. In these kind of deals, you made him expendable. When you watched like last season, you kind of freed Marcus Smart to be Marcus Smart. He wasn't bogged down by being a fake point guard. But I agree. Now you don't absolutely have to have him. And people are way less interested in Brogdon than they are Smart.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
In a hypothetical world, though, we talked about the Boston package. Everybody in Philadelphia is already putting together their package to send, to Brooklyn to get KD back. And it's way more ruthless than I originally expected. There was a picture. Tobias Harris got married over the weekend, so shout out to him and the new Mrs. Harris. Most of the Sixers were there, and there's a picture of George Niang, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias, and Matisse all at the wedding. And people pack your bags, you're going to Brooklyn. And like that's the package they're willing to give up. And one, Brooklyn doesn't take it. Not enough assets, not enough picks. Two, even on our side, you're trading. If you're going 8 deep in the playoffs, 4 of them are in that picture. So, I mean, you're trading half the rotation, albeit it's for Kevin Durant, but you just did this. You just watched almost your mirror in the East make the same move, decimate the bench, and go get KD, and it hasn't worked yet. I don't get why you do it again.
They're not going to do it. I think as far as like hoopla goes, this is all noise. Daryl Morey's great. Getting Harden last year for a Ben Simmons who wasn't playing was a ridiculous, return, regardless of what version you got of James Harden. He's still James Harden. But this trade isn't happening. Now, on the flip side, with Kyrie Irving, all reports have pointed to him basically being content with the Brooklyn Nets. He's in a good place. There was a bunch of reports that he also hated Nash and Marks, and those reports were disputed by his mother/agent, who basically said Kyrie never said that. He doesn't even have the word hate in his vocabulary.
Continue.
Yeah, but I also think, he did step on Lucky.
Yeah. Also, is there any universe where Steve Nash is on the bench this season?
That's a really interesting question. So, up until this point, I thought there was a decent chance that Kevin Durant would come back and play for the Brooklyn Nets. At this point, if the Nets don't make a change in the coaching staff and they retain Marks and Steve Nash and they don't trade Kevin Durant before the season starts, I'm telling you this right now, Brandon, and I've been saying this since he first requested the trade, Kevin Durant will sit out of basketball games if Steve Nash is still there. Don't get it twisted. I remember reading reports a few weeks ago, NBA insiders don't think Kevin Durant is wired to sit out games. What?
Absolutely
what do you guys know that I don't? That Kevin Durant likes to play basketball? Kudos to you. That means nothing. Okay, this is 2022. If these guys are unhappy with their current situation, they're not going to play. You saw it with Anthony Davis a few years ago in New Orleans. It worked. He got to go to Los Angeles and win a title. You saw it with Ben Simmons last year. It worked. He has a new home in Brooklyn, and he has a total fresh start. Doesn't matter who you are. Sitting out works. And by the way, if the Nets want to, play hardball and not trade him and be like, report to training camp or sit out, whatever, it's going to be a totally wasted season for Brooklyn. You can't build anything if your best player is sitting out. So then good for you, Josiah. You once again made the Nets a laughing stock by not making it, just a decent situation. If you have to carry this on to the season, it's going to be awful. So the answer to your question is yes, because of the way Joe Tsai has reacted to everything this summer. And by the way, right after that ultimatum came out, Joe Tsai immediately tweeted his support for the front office. He goes, the front office has, the Brooklyn Nets support our front office, or whatever he tweeted. So I don't think he would go back on that tweet and just go and fire Nash and Marks. I don't think that happens. I think he drew his line in the sand.
I'm on board. So I didn't mind the tweet. I've been on this podcast saying I don't think Sean Marks has done a good job the last year, two seasons, if we're being completely honest. But there was the time to fire him based on performance has come and gone. And I don't think you can players can already get coaches fired. It's a slippery slope. I don't think you can start that precedent of firing your front office on a player's request. I think Steve Nash isn't on the bench when the season starts, and I don't think he should be. I think he's done a horrible job at managing, albeit a bad situation. But we're just talking about how Dan Campbell has the respect of his guys. I don't believe that to be the case with Steve Nash, at least not over the last season.
You remember what happened with the Cam Thomas thing in Summer League?
No.
They interviewed Cam Thomas after he had like 7 or 8 assists, and the reporter said, "Hey, Steve Nash said he wanted to see you, develop more at playmaking." And Cam Thomas rolled his eyes and laughed.
Mm-hmm.
And the reporter said, "Why did you laugh?" He goes, "It is what it is."
Yeah.
This is a second-year player who's not respecting the head coach. You think a 13-year veteran like Kevin Durant will?
That's what I'm saying. So, you can get rid of Steve Nash and let that be your olive branch. I think it's too dangerous to go set the precedent of clearing out the front office of guys the players don't like. That might be a little far.
And by the way, Durant's been around for 14 seasons, not 13. If the Nets were to get rid of Steve Nash tomorrow, does Kevin Durant decide he wants to play?
I think at that point you increase your odds of keeping him. Like right now, you're probably at like a 30% he stays. I think that bumps you to like a solid 70. In all honesty, I think it's a show of faith that his opinion matters, and he doesn't think that it does right now.
I've said this a bunch of times. I don't know if on this podcast, on any podcast, just out loud. But if you're Joe Tsai, in 20 years, who are people going to be talking about? Sean Marks and the job he and Steve Nash did with the Brooklyn Nets? Or Kevin Durant and the championships he won elsewhere?
I'm with you with Steve Nash. I don't think you can fire Sean Marks. That you'll never be able to go back once you open that door.
I don't know. I think there are a lot of guys that can do what Sean Marks does, if not better.
I don't think he's good at his job. I'm saying the time to fire him based off performance is over.
I get it. I don't disagree with you. All right, we can move on. We talked enough Nets. What else is going on?
Vogie the Hoagie, baby. The absolute unit running around the bags in Queens came up to milkshakes for Women's Day. Absolutely won over the crowd. Everyone knows about Diaz coming down, ninth inning, trumpets, absolutely electric. That walk-up song on Women's Day, the piece de resistance.
Yeah. Listen, I'm a Yankees fan by a slim margin because I respect the Mets. I like the Mets. I grew up a Yankees fan, but there's a swagger to the Mets that you can't deny right now. The clip of what's his name, Vogelback?
Yeah, Danny Vogelback.
The clip of him running around the bases and scoring, I think it was from first.
Dude's cooking.
It's one of my favorite clips I've ever seen. And again, if you want a guy like me who's not a huge baseball fan to watch more baseball, please throw people out there like him and give me guys like Edwin Diaz who come out to sick trumpet songs and just strike dudes out. The Mets have something this year, and it's going to be sad when it somehow blows up in their face, either right before the playoffs or in the playoffs. But I give them a lot of credit. They've managed to find success this year and really sustain it, and they have a nice lead in the NL East. They're definitely faring a little bit better than the Yanks these last few weeks as well.
Yeah, dude, the NL East is kind of insane. The Mets, for my money, might be one of the most dangerous teams in the NL. And then you have the Braves 4 games up on us. So the Braves are the number 1 seed in the wild card. Or the number 2 seed in the wild card. So you're looking at a 3 out of 5 teams almost guaranteed a playoff berth. I mean, the way the Phillies are playing, they've won 12 out of their last 13. They're the best bullpen in baseball right now over the last month and a half.
Familia?
No, we cut them. Thank God.
There you
Familia and Odubel got the axe. We brought back David Robertson and we brought in Brendan Marsh, the center fielder. They're nice. I was there last night, dude. Phillies are looking – it's going to be a red October.
You guys are 9-1 in your last 10. The Mets are 8-2 in their last 10. The Yankees are an abysmal 2-8 in their last 10.
The Gallo curse, right?
Yeah. Did they cut him yet?
No, they traded him to the Dodgers.
Oh, see, this is why I need you to give me this information.
Yeah, he was a deadline deal. He knew he was going to get traded. It was a great story, but it was sad. They're asking about his time in New York, like weeks before the trade deadline. And he was like, I don't think I really got a full chance here. He was like, I hated living here. At the last month of the season that he was here, he would have all of his food like Postmates, DoorDash. He was like, I couldn't go out to restaurants. I couldn't go out to bars. I was afraid to go out in public. He was like, everybody just hated me so much. And like, look, I'm from Philly. Like, sports are a massive part of my life. I always feel bad, though, when athletes are like, I was afraid to leave my house. Like, it should never get that deep.
Yeah, I mean, that's New York for you, but I agree. There's no excuse. And to the people who, made Joey Gallo feel that way, like, grow up, be better, do better.
Yeah,
these are human beings. If they're not bad guys, then don't say anything to them.
Yeah, like let them go get a hoagie or something, or like at the stadium, dude. It all flies. Boo him, whatever. But like when he's out living his life, man, he's just a dude. Like just let him live.
Yeah, don't boo him. Boo Deshaun Watson.
We don't even have time, but yeah, he's starting the first preseason game because the Browns just said, "Who cares? We're doing it anyway." That's a whole separate episode.
Browns are such a mess. I saw Kareem Hunt requested a trade, and they were like, "Nope."
Good for him. Before we end it, if you haven't seen the Marshawn Lynch DUI mugshot,
yes,
highly recommend it. Man's eyes aren't open. Also, look for the car picture. No rims, no tires, only rims driving down the sidewalk. That's how he got caught.
Prayers up to Marshawn Lynch. I'm a huge Lynch fan. And also shout out to Sideline Sports. This podcast, 2 Hours No Traffic, is brought to you by Sideline Sports. They have a wide network of sports shows and podcasts. really anything you're looking for, they got it. So check out Sideline Sports on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram.